All right. Hello. This is for we're doing Roman class at the location for this spring 2026. I look at the year for some reason. Anyways, this is because this video is for the the class because the juniors, all of them, which is like 90 something percent of the class, had testing this week, so they weren't in class. So this is why we're here. I was going to make the participation on this makeup, but I decided to make this a participation. And the reason why is simple. You do need to watch this because we cover chapter 25 covers the third general purpose. And then 26 is just important and relevant. And there's going to be test questions from there. So we need to watch this. So at this time, it's 5 points. Maybe I'll throw another question and make sure that you guys watch this. So maybe up to 10 points. All right. Um, Here it goes. Um, chapter 25. Um, so remember, there's three general purposes, right? Yeah, I'm using the bum head. Three general purposes. One is your first two speeches informative. Your first and second speech were informative speeches. Third speech that you're doing is persuasion. That's the other one, right? Informative, you're just saying something. You're not telling them to do anything. You're just telling them information. Persuasion, you're trying to change minds or behavior. That's it. Chapter 25 covers the third one, which is entertainment, also referred to as special occasions, ceremonial, special occasion, special event speaking. It's entertainment. And the reason why it's entertainment is it goes after emotion. There's no structure to them or anything. Here's what's on the test. All right. And I'll cover this again. And it's important that you understand this. And that's what this chapter is about. Actually, I'm going to put it in the middle. So you have to watch. Um, unless you're one of the students that showed up for that one class where there was barely anyone that showed up, and I gave away that answer already. All right, chapter 25. Um, Public relations speech. None of these are going to be on the test, but you need to know them to understand what an entertainment speech is. Public relations speech is any kind of sales speech, pretty much. If you ever go to a convention, the people who are at the booths, the people who do the sales pitches at Costco, for example. Anytime they're trying to hand out information and so forth, entertainment speeches, they go after your emotions, right? So and if not persuasion, it is trying to, like the sales speeches, they're trying to get you to buy, but there's like really no structure to it. It's just throwing out information and stuff. Most of the time, public relations speeches are there to just get the information, the brand out, and it's again trying to connect what they want you to know with how you're feeling, right? Um, for example, at Costco when they're doing the blender display, they want you to think about healthy eating and feeling good about what you put in. So without their emotions. Speech of introduction. When you introduce somebody, essentially, or you're introducing a subject, or you're introducing some kind of occasion, and so forth. There are other types of introductions that have different, um, they're on here as well, but this is just a generic one. A toast. All right. A toast. This is very important. Toasts are probably um, one of the most important speeches on the list. And they're important because the fact of the matter is these are plentiful. When you're talking wedding speeches, rehearsal speeches, retirement speeches, anything like that, anything where you're standing up in front of everyone to give some kind of props or something of that nature. The toast, you toast the bride, the groom, the retiree, the person of the hour, whatever, or the event. to toast. These are plentiful. This is the one that you will most likely have seen already. If you've been to a wedding, you've seen a toast. All right. Birthdays. If someone stands up, older folks will have toasts at their birthdays. All right. Anniversary parties, stuff like that. Yeah. Award presentations, exactly how it sounds. And some of you have been in sports and you have to be at sports award ceremonies and stuff like that. This is when you give the award out and so forth, and the event as well. Nomination speeches, when you nominate somebody for something. We have clubs on college and high school campuses. And sometimes they'll have a nomination process for officers, and they'll maybe give us, someone will nominate them and give a little speech about why they should be the president of the club. That's a nomination speech. A nomination speeches are anytime you nominate someone for something. Acceptance speeches. This is when you win an award, right? Here I have a Lego figure here for let me not use a Lego figure. Oh, what is this? When anytime you watch the Oscars, the Emmys, anything like that, when they get the award, that's the acceptance speech. The most famous acceptance speech, I still think is the most famous one, is Sally Fields. It was decades ago, but it's been parodied a lot. Is when she comes up and she says, "You like me, you really, really like me." You know, when they take the award, here's this is the award right here. This minion that's dressed like a dog. Right? You like me. You really, really like me. Right? That's the award presentation. Think about the award presentation. I'm sorry, award acceptance speech when they accept it. My favorite acceptance speech of all time is Joe Pesci when he won the Best Supporting Actor for Goodfellas. He came up. I'm gonna do the whole speech, so give me a moment. I know it's gonna be a lot, but I'm gonna do my Joe Pesci impression and everything. So it's gonna take a moment. Hold on a second. Walks up. Thank you. And then walks away. That's it. That's all he did. It was the best speech ever because he just said thank you and then walked off. All right. Keynote address. If you ever been to a convention of any type, they are pretty much required to be considered a convention. They have a keynote address. A lot of times, like your comic cons and anime cons and so forth, it's usually like an opening speech, something done on the side. But for political conventions and like those types of things, the keynote address is like a big thing. Like Democrat, Republican conventions, the keynote address is one of the prime time speeches. So it just matters what kind of convention, but all kinds of every convention needs to have a keynote address to start it off or to make it official. Commencement address, when you graduate of any type, let's see, my degrees. It's a commencement address. The most important thing about commencement graduation speeches, they do have to do two things. One, recognize the people graduating or getting through whatever the process is, and then two, the people that made it possible. All right, made it possible. So you're not just saying congratulations for graduating. You're also saying thank you, teachers, thank you, parents, or whoever helped. All right. Fun fact about me, I've never been to any of my graduations, all those degrees there. Never sat through a ceremony ever. Not even my high school graduation. The only graduation ceremony I've ever went to is the one I was forced to go to. Of course, anything with the Marine Corps. That's why the honorable discharge is on that wall, and it's in a much nicer frame than those $1.50 Walmart frames. It's a long story. Commemorative address. These are speeches done at historical events. So, like Veterans Day, I'm recording this before Memorial Day weekend. Any type of event that like historical. We during my time in LA, every 5 years they do ceremonies for the walkouts, the East LA walkouts at the major high schools that had them. I was around for one of those 5 year ceremonies. And so, yeah, they had commemorative addresses for that. So Veterans Day, they'll have, commemorative address, anniversaries of major events, they'll have commemorative addresses. These are, for remembering what has occurred. Eulogies, eulogies. These are very important. And sometimes people go, why are these considered entertainment speeches? Because entertainment speeches, again, are about going after the emotion. And eulogies do that. All right, that's very important. Eulogies do that. If the person wants to pass away with the what you call it, with everyone happy, then they'll do that, right? If they want them to be sad, they'll have a funny funeral. If they want them to be sad, they'll have that kind of eulogy, or remember, if it's more of us, remembering, memorial type. So it goes after the emotion and so forth. That's important later when we talk about it, the purposes of these speeches. But eulogies are the ones, when it comes to entertainment speeches, eulogies and toasts are the ones that you're most likely to see, and you've already been a part of. I remember the first funeral I went to was, this is true, was for the man I'm named after, my grandfather. He's up on the wall right over here. He's on the war wall. Military stuff. So yeah, he's a part of a big crowd of survivors of the Helena. But anyways, so yeah, the eulogies. So after dinner speeches, these are more casual. They're kind of like toast, but they're exactly how it sounds, after dinner. So when going away type thing. Oh, guys, before we go, we got to say a couple few words. Those types of things. These are actually very common as well, but just not as recognized as toast and eulogies in the sense of entertainment speeches. Eulogies and toasts are the ones that you're most likely to see or have seen already. All right. There are some techniques that you can use for entertainment speeches. Some of them I'm not going to even tell you about. Puns. It's a type of humor that I do not like. In fact, when I accidentally do a pun, I say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Puns are where comedy dies. By the way, I love this with Zooms is doing the character walking across or floating across in the case of Booth here. I think I have a Lego. Yeah, I have a Lego figure that I can make walk across. Anyways, puns are, I don't like them, but they're very popular. Play on words. That's all they are. You can look them up. You can see them, but it's very humor wise. It's kind of cheap. Sorry. Spoonerisms, Malapropism. I'm not going to teach you. It's, if you want to look it up, that's fine. It's not on the test. None of these are on the test. I just think they're not as effective. I've done tons of these types of speeches already. All right. Hyperbole, hyperbolic. I always like that one. Hyperbole. I always mess up that word. It's when you over exaggerate or you go too much, right? It's when you, like, if you say somebody is a good dad, but instead of saying they're a good dad, they're like, this is the father of the year 12 years running, right? You just exaggerate in that manner, because when someone uses hyperbole, or the negative version of it is when people over exaggerate in a negative way. But anyways, this is more of the entertainment side. You could just say over exaggeration. Understatement is the opposite of that. Understatement is, like, for example, if you say, "Oh, Nick Cannon has won Father of the Year," multiple times in the same year. That's just an understatement. And you're kind of making fun of the fact that he has a lot of kids. Um, these are this is what I'm using water that was in a bubble. You know how you guys know how I like bubble water. But this is bubble water that has gone mostly flat. Trying to finish it. Anyways, understatements are exactly what it sounds like. Verbal irony is just being ironic with your words. That's all it is. Just being ironic with your words. It's a little bit harder. Being ironic is a little bit harder. Alanis Morissette came up with the song "Ironic," and none of it's ironic. It's something else. So it's a little bit harder. It's more advanced use of humor and so forth. Wit is smart humor. Is you're being smart, all right, and so forth. These are just little techniques. All right. Um, that's all the different entertainment speeches, and it's important for you to understand why they're important because here it is, hint hint nudge nudge. When it comes to all the different speeches, the three speeches: persuasive, informative, entertainment. Entertainment speeches are the ones that you are most likely to make in your lifetime. And I'm going to add a little caveat. They're the ones you're most likely to make in your lifetime in a formal way, meaning that you're on a stage and there's an audience, right? Remember what I said, toast and eulogies. These are the two most, frequent um, entertainment speeches that you will see in your lifetime. Well, probability is also you'll give in your lifetime. All right. So when it comes to being on a stage in front of people outside of education, this is the one that you're most likely to make in your lifetime. And again, in a formal setting, meaning a stage and an audience. Okay. And that's important to note. And some of you say, well, so I was at this wedding and they stood up at the table, but the audience was seated in like a formal way, right? So, and the table was at the head of the room, right? Because informal we'll talk about in the next chapter. So it's important for you to remember that. When it comes to your lifetime, that's speech you're most likely to make on the stage in front of people formally. Meaning not that you're in a tuxedo, meaning that the formal setup of a stage in an audience. So why is it also important to understand this? And this is so important for your life, not for the class, but for your life. If you ever have to make one of these speeches, you need to be aware that you need to be appropriate for your setting of speech, right? I usually show my students probably the most famous eulogy of all time. One of the most famous eulogies of all time. I'm not going to show it to you because one, it's on here, and then the other reason why it's a high school class, dual enrollment class, and so I don't think it's appropriate for me to show. You can look it up. I'll give you the information. But it's famous because there was a comedy group. Do I have anything of them? Well, my car is named after them. My Mini Cooper. You guys, some of you have seen it. It's the name of my Mini Cooper is Monty after Monty Python. No, I don't think I have anything of theirs up here. Oh, the movie. Oh, I have to get up and get it. It's over there on the display area. Anyways, their famous British comedy group that did their famous influential TV show and their movies. Monty Python and the Holy Grail is the most famous. That's the one where they try to find the Holy Grail. There's the rabbit that kills the knights, famous scenes, all that stuff. They have a bunch of stuff. Anyways, a lot of the people that you like comedy wise were probably influenced by them, or the people that influenced them were definitely influenced by Monty Python. Very important. And at the time when one of their members died at the age of 48, they were so popular. They were like running around with the Beatles and the Who They're British. They're British. The Who, Zeppelin, and those types of folks. They were so famous that his funeral was on national television back in the day when there was not that many television channels. Or I think with the BBC, I think it was like only one channel or something like that. And so it was on every TV that was on at the time, and they made a point to drop an F bomb. John Cleese. That's how you would look it up. You just put John Cleese, traditional spelling John, and Cleese Cleese, and then you type in the word eulogy, and it's on YouTube. There is cussing, but he dropped the famous part is he drops the F bomb on national television in the afternoon on like a Saturday or Sunday. So and you're sitting there like, isn't that why is that appropriate? Well, it is. It's important to understand that because entertainment speech needs to be appropriate. The emotion that you go after needs to be appropriate. That was appropriate. These guys were groundbreaking comedy. They pushed the limit on humor and what could be talked about. Their stuff was banned or they try to censor them. It was it was risque humor at the time. So them doing that was absolutely appropriate. If you're I've had students ask, I ask students if they've ever experienced an inappropriate entertainment speech, and I've had tons of students of um, the best man speeches at weddings, and the best man says inappropriate things, right? I heard about a graduation speech just recently where the person took the time to just go like the entire time just to go after the school and how horrible the school was, which that's fine, but maybe talk about how there's these good things that got them through the bad situation, right? And for like most of the class, this person was probably going off to college to better things. For most of the students, that was probably it for them. And this person came up and was like, it's all about me and how I feel about the school to a bunch of people that will never go to college. That's the thing. Graduation speeches, high school graduation speeches, especially the very large schools, a good percentage, a large percentage, that's it for them. And so if you're inappropriate, you ruin, which might be a peak moment. So keep that in mind. The best example, and I'll do this example real quick. Everyone knows I was in the Marine Corps. Someone I was close to at one time came running up to me to tell me about this wedding they just saw. It's a very common thing in Mexican culture, that the father or grandfather is the patriarch, right? And then this also plays into machismo as well, but it's the patriarch, it's the head, it's, untouchable status, and especially traditional. And there was this wedding with a traditional Mexican family. The father of the bride was the patriarch of that side of the family, and essentially the patriarch of the day, because he's giving that speech. And he shows up, and the guy was in the Marine Corps. We can show up to weddings and our special events even after we're out of the service in our very nice dress attire. There's the dress blues, and then there's my favorite, the dress A's, which are the green ones, which those are my favorite. The dress blues actually it's really beat up, and I won't touch it because it's falling apart. But that's the top. That's what we call the cover, the hat of the dress blues right there. That white hat, not the toad one, not the toad one from Mario, but that one right there. And the guy, the father of the bride, dressed up, and so when he walked down the aisle, he was in his extremely sharp but loud military, but which is fine. Which is fine. The one with the medals, it was fun. What happened though was at the reception, it was his turn to give a speech, and he asked everyone to stand up. And so they all did, thinking he was going to toast. They're going to raise their glasses. Some of them already started raising their glasses. But instead of him doing a toast, he signaled the DJ. The DJ. Anyway, the DJ who had already set up for this to happen to play a song. And the song was the U.S. national anthem. And he had everyone put their glasses down and they put their hands on their heart, saying of attention, all that stuff. And they played the national anthem. Now, I don't know this part of, I don't remember this part of the story. I believe they were able to be seated, or I don't know if they had to stay seated. I think they were all seated. But anyway, it doesn't matter because he spent 20 minutes. His speech was 20 minutes long. And again, the patriarch of the family. No one questioned him. No one dare stood up and tell him to stop. He spent 20 minutes at his daughter's wedding talking about how everyone should be like, think about all the people that died for their freedoms. He spent the whole speech talking about military service and the people who died in the military for their freedom, for this country, and their sacrifice. The only time he brought up the couple was to say how they should be respectful because their marriage is possible because of the freedoms that these people died for. By the end of the speech, the bride was crying because the whole time he never really acknowledged her or the groom or their happiness or anything like that. What you are supposed to really do at that moment. He spent the whole time talking, essentially took it over for himself and what he think was important, which was very inappropriate. I'm in the Marine Corps. I would have probably stood up and told him, I would have said, double dog. So that's an example of an extreme, a very inappropriate speech. If you ever find yourself in that situation, make sure you make the right emotional call. Because that's what it's all about. The very last thing. There's no real structure to these speeches. And the thing about entertainment speeches is it's usually in the structure of how the person really talks in their life. Right? If you're someone who's a fast talker, goes all over the place, you are more likely to be that person who talks like that in an entertainment speech. It's not like our structure speeches in our classes. The entertainment speeches is an extension of your voice. So it's your job to get that right emotion, and you go for the emotional appeal. That's what the purpose of it is. You're toasting someone. You're toasting how great they are. I once was asked to lead a roast of somebody who was leaving a job, and that we did what we were supposed to do, right? And so these speeches, you have to find the right emotional unit. And that's the most important part of entertainment speeches, the right emotional appeal, right? That eulogy can be someone who wants everyone to laugh. It could be everyone that wants people to cry. It could be that person who just wants people to feel better about them moving on. It's whatever is the right emotional appeal. That is the purpose of an entertainment speech. If you have questions, you can ask me. Send me through Canvas, all that stuff. We'll go over the last chapter, the very last chapter of the book, chapter 26. Communication Studies has a lot of electives, a lot of possible classes you could take. I'm happen to teach two of the most popular electives that I teach. I've taught a lot of the different ones, but I'm teaching the two most popular ones I teach in the fall. The most popular one I teach is this class called argumentation. That's communication studies subject, and it's a very popular class I teach because I teach people how to be evil when they argue. I'm the best debater there is, and I can argue rings around people, and I teach people how to do that. I teach them the basics to get up the next level, right? I taught it a lot at Pierce College when I was over there, and there was people my department chair had said, yeah, I had students coming up asking when you're going to teach it next. So that's most popular. The one I love teaching the most is my signature subject, which is intercultural communication. That's another one that is in communication studies. That's communication between different cultures. I actually wrote my own textbook, free textbook for those people who take it in the fall, and yeah, it's a great subject. It's one of the only classes I would ever recommend people put on their resume because the ability to communicate between cultures is something you need in this global environment. Um, Health professionals, law enforcement, it should be a requirement. We have interpersonal communication. If any of you want to be nurses, doctors, medical professionals, mental health professionals, that is that subject, right? That's a requirement. When I took it in graduate level, the person who taught us was a actual psychology professor, but they were a specialist in interpersonal communication. There's healthcare communication. There is all these different types. There's media, new media. There's the media ones. There's oral interpretation. Horrible. I'm not a fan of that. Oh, look, there's the drama and art department over there. Anyways, we have a lot of electives, and wherever you go, they're transfer. If you go to community college, just FYI, they're all pretty much transferable. And communication studies minor is if not the best, is the best minor, I think, because it really tells people you can communicate. But the reason why I bring this up is there's one in particular that is probably the most practical application wise, right? Most applicable because it's an everyday workplace type communication, and that is group communication. Chapter 26. It's a very small chapter. The only reason why it's there is because the authors of this book realize how important it is when it comes to public speaking and everyday communication. Small group communication in the workplace. And I'm a political science professor. The reason why I mention that is political science has an area called public administration. It's a boring area of it, but it's the most practical application because a lot of political science majors go off and work in government. They're not theorists like me, right? We have the same thing, communication studies. This is the practical application area, and that's small group communication. Um, here's what's on here. There's two possible test questions. Oh, actually, there's two test questions on here. I'll go over the first one on the slide. The first one, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Out of the three general purposes, persuasion, entertainment, the one that you're most likely to make in an informal, meaning you're just standing up and talking in front of people, right? It's not a stage, it's not an audience, it's just you standing up and taking a public speaking role, is informative. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, the informative. So persuasion is the most dangerous form of speech I taught you. Entertainment is the one that you're most likely to make in a formal setting, meaning a stage audience setup. The one that you're most likely to make in a informal, meaning you're just standing up and talking in front of people, is informative. And the reason why that is because of group communication. Group communication, or the class that it's most commonly referred to as small group communication. Small group communication, the term means any kind of communication between people. Remember interactive communication models, you have to have feedback. It's group communication between people 3 to 12. General group communication is between 3 to 24. Anything above 24, you're just in public speaking area. There's just too many people for it to be considered healthy group communication. So generic group communication is 3 to 24. Specific group communication is 3 to 12. So why is this important? Obviously, business meetings. I remember working because I told you guys about working at Universal Studios one summer as a wizard, the wizard, Harry Potter land area. We would have briefings before we go and work. And that was small group communication because we were all standing around and informally someone took charge and told us about the day's goals. Any kind of job training, situation meetings, this small group communication. In it, you have reflective thinking. Reflective thinking is a process. There's a bunch of steps. It's in the book, but it's just essentially when you get together, you define some things, you have the analysis, you set a criteria, you go back and forth, and you meet a consensus, right? It's a step process. I always add this on reflective thinking. One of the most problematic parts of small group communication is when you have like-minded people all together because they're just like reflectively thinking off each other. The mirror part of the reflective thinking. Oh, that's a great idea. I like that idea. Let's go with that. That's great. It's always great to have a diverse group of minds in a meeting if you want real stuff. It can be problematic, but at the same time, it's always good to have someone who says no once in a while. I always think about when I worked in the public library system, the upper echelon was librarians. Librarians tend to be very flighty, la 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 people, and I always think about these high end goals, but are the business manager of the library who was in those meetings. He was always by himself on this, but he was the no person, and that dynamic worked very well. In the reflective thinking process, there's three things I'm just going to point out. Analysis, it's on the slide, obviously. Analysis is when you bring in all the information, all the viewpoints, all the ideas, when you have to define things and so forth. When you're coming up with how is this going to be successful? What is the goal of it? When you're talking about the criteria, what are we trying to meet here? And then finally, the consensus is our final thing that we are putting together. Here's the thing. The best way to remember small group communications is simple. We've all done it already. Anytime you're with your family and your friends and you're trying to make a decision on like family vacations or where to go eat or what movie to watch or any of that stuff, you've already done that. And so all this is just formalizing stuff that you've done not every day, but you know what I mean. Multiple times, over your, in a month, in a year, and so forth. So when you get together, let's say you have a friend group and you get together, you have to decide something. One person is a vegan, vegetarian. You got to take that analysis in, and you're like, okay, we're restricted, right? I remember when I was stationed in Texas, and I was going to eat with somebody, and they were vegetarian. This was decades ago, because I'm old. And we're in like San Angelo, Texas. And there was no vegetarian vegan options in San Angelo, Texas. And we had to go to a Wendy's because that was it. They're like everything was meat. So yeah, you gotta take in, or like if there's dietary requirements or someone's kosher or so forth. You take in all those possibilities. You take in that information when you're deciding where the group should go eat. Right? Criteria. Place that we can all go to and have something. Doesn't mean we're happy, but have something to eat. Right? We're all fed. That's the criteria. Right? And the consensus. Here's the thing about group communication and the consensus. Does it mean everyone's happy? No. Does it mean 100% of the people are on board? No. But it just means the majority or the overall goal is met. All right. Why do we do this? We're in these. If you take small group communication as an elective, which by the way, if you're a business major, you're going into business, you want to be a business owner, management, that kind of thing, you need to take this class. But it's done to solve problems. There's actual theories, there's actual setup, and so forth. I teach it. I think I have the book. It's like one of the cheapest books I use. Oh well, it's somewhere. Probably like here. All right. Anyways, Yeah, there's a whole thing behind it and reasoning and so forth. But it's mostly there to solve problems. I personally think sometimes we get a little too much in the whole committee meeting thing, and we don't have people take responsibility for stuff. But at the same time, brainstorming is a very good thing, and it's always good to have that. So if you have an effective group, efficient group, it should work fine. Just don't over rely on it. Reflective thinking and public speaking. Here's the thing about it. Again, remember the best way to remember this stuff is to put it to yourself when you have been in situations like that. And so, what I'm thinking of with reflective thinking and that whole process, think about your friend group. Think about that friend group for a second, or maybe your family group. Isn't there always somebody who takes charge? Think about a friend group. Who is that person in your friend group who tends to take charge? In your family group, is it the mom? Is it the dad? Is it, somebody else? When that person stands up and takes charge and talks to the group, they're essentially public speaking. Remember, I said the one that you're most likely to make in an informal setting. They're taking that leadership spot. And when the leader of the group talks, they go into public speaking mode. That's why this is in the public speaking book, is because this is again in the informal setting, meaning no stage. You're just standing up in front of people, or you're standing in front of people and they're just standing around you. This is the one, informative is the one that you're most likely to make in an informal setting. All right. So, what is it with leadership? There's four styles. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Remember what I said about multiple choice tests? When you have a professor who gives you four things to cover, that's instantly going to be, if they do multiple choice tests, that's going to instantly be on a multiple choice test. Look at that, leadership styles. There's four of them. All right. And we tend to use one of these four, or we tend to uh, um, highlight or prefer any of it, one of these four. Um, there's one word on here that it seems bad, and in most of the time it's bad. But in this case, it's just a leadership style, which is how it's done. So that's the first word. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge on these four words. Authoritarian. While it's mostly bad in most settings, especially in government, authoritarian here is just in the meeting, someone takes charge. That's it. There's one leader, usually designated by like management or by their position in the patriarch, the matriarch of the family, right? You didn't vote who's the dad or who's the mom, right? It's that person who takes charge, or is it just takes charge because of their position? And they run it, they run the meeting and so forth, and they might ask everyone for vote, but when it comes to the final decision, when it comes to the consensus, they usually have to be okay with the consensus. An authoritarian style doesn't allow the consensus not to be um, passed without the authoritarian leader, meaning the person in charge, to be okay with it as well. Their vote is the most important vote. Democratic. This is the democratic process of meetings, right? This is the friend group option where, hey, we're all together. You know this neighborhood better than everyone else. Where do we go eat? What are the food options? You tell us right now. That's democratic, right? Everyone recognizes, they all say this person knows the most about this area, or you've been to, like you traveled, like you and your friends all take the train, which by the way, it's a great train ride down to San Diego once you leave the LA County area. But anyways, and there's a one person you get off the train at Little Italy, which I highly recommend, and you're like, oh wait, hey everybody, don't we remember so and so went to Little Italy one time? And everyone's like, oh yeah, let's all agree that this person will be the leader of the group for today. That's democratic. The democratic leadership style, the leader tends to be elected by the group, right? Decided by the group. Their decisions are usually decided together. The democratic leader tends to move it along and they call for votes and they call for action and so forth. But at the end of the day, when the consensus comes out, they're the ones who call for the vote. And even if they're against it, if the majority wins, then that's the way it goes. So Democratic leaders, it's all about the group, right? Laissez-faire. Laissez-faire style. If you taken economics, you heard of laissez-faire economy and so forth. Leadership style of letting things happen, right? Usually, laissez-faire leader is like, hey guys, we're gonna all just get together and brainstorm 30 minutes, talk amongst yourselves. If anyone has anything to say, you guys can just stand up and say it to the group. But yeah, 30 minutes. That's it. Hands off leadership style. When it comes to the consensus, it's like, hey guys, we got to figure out something. What do you guys think? Let's throw out ideas, and then it's done democratically, but it's the most inefficient of these styles. It's also the one that has the least friction, but it is the least efficient. The best example of this is you and your friends. When you just go, okay, we're gonna go eat somewhere. We're gonna go to the mall. You get to the mall, instead of everyone deciding on where to eat, you're like, hey guys, half an hour, me back here, go get somewhere to eat. Well, see you later. That's laissez-faire, right? You show up to a place that has multiple options. Hey guys, you do whatever you want. We'll meet back up here in a half an hour or an hour. That's laissez-faire. Transformational. Transformational is authoritarian with perks. What I mean by that is transformational, the perks are for the group. So transformational leader is someone who takes charge, usually a person who's appointed or on it, but it's all about bringing up the group and the individual members along with the process. And this is a very good technique when you want to have someone take over for you eventually. A good patriarch or a good matriarch is always looking for that family member to take over for once in a while. When I talk to people about the Trump family, not many people know that Trump was not the original heir apparent. There was an older brother named, I believe it was Franklin, and he was the one that was supposed to take over. The patriarch of the family, that was his pick, but the pressure got to him, and he became he died early. Anyways, sorry, but it's still transformational leader is all about bringing up the group and group members and so forth. And it's really good process, especially in the workplace, because people get promoted. And when they get promoted, someone has to take their place in the meetings. That's what transformational leadership does. It's authoritarian with the perks for the group, not building up the group. Teachers all want to be transformational, but they tend, because of the process, because not everybody wants to be brought up. Not everyone wants to be developed. Teachers tend to be authoritarian, and they unfortunately have to be. Yeah, so that's the 4 leadership style. One of them is going to be on the test. So it looks like we're only going to do one participation. Today's participation, here's the thing. The 2 participations from these chapters have to be done in person, right? They have to be done in person or under they're the impromptu requirements for the class. So I can't do them over this. You can't write them out on a reply. So what you're going to do for participation is your last speech is a persuasive speech, right? One of the big problems with students, especially students out of high school or still in high school, is they do speeches from high schools, cost benefit analysis speeches, pro con speeches. Throw that trash in the garbage. All right. This is a structure that can be applied to any type of informative or persuasive speech that I teach in this class. Those speeches, They're not here, right? They're not supposed to be here. But here's the thing: when you are making an argument, remember what I said earlier about can't think of the word. Hypotheticals, right? Illustrations possibly happening. So when you're doing your solution, you might think of a hypothetical, like if we pass this law, this is the possible result of passing the law. This is what the outcome will be, right? That's a hypothetical. Or if we could, like when you're describing the problem, if we continue down this path, we don't change, this is what the outcome is going to be. Those are hypotheticals. So what I want you to do for your participation is I want you to write 2 sentences. One sentence is hypothetical. The first one will be a hypothetical problem. If we don't fix the problem, this will occur. You can actually use my words. If we don't fix this problem, by the way, the problem is obviously your topic, then this will occur. And then the hypothetical for your solution is this solution, obviously your words for the solution, this solution will cause this to happen. Well, this will be the outcome, right? That's it. That's your participation. So, and it will count. It's not makeup. It will count. All right. Now you know what to do. Make sure you do it and get ready for your speeches. Oh, by the way, you can follow this YouTube channel. You can get to this YouTube channel and you can find speeches. I'm teaching a short-term class and we just covered the persuasive speech. And so there's a new video that can help you on persuasive speech. All right, now you know what to do. We're going to turn off.